Good afternoon, everyone. It's Pablo Zuanic, Cannabis Equity Analyst at Zuanic and Associates. Thank you for joining us. We have a very esteemed panel here to discuss the flower segment in Canada's recreational market. So welcome to our speakers. We have Margaret Brodie. She's the CEO of Rubicon Organics. We have Orville Bovenschen, President of Village Farms, Canadian Cannabis. We have Cyrus Hambaz, CEO of Canadian Clinical Cannabinoids. And we have Alex Smith, CEO of Canada's Island Garden. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
And for those of you listening in Zoom or via Twitter, you can email me questions. You can put questions on the Twitter page also, and we'll try to address them. But I read the questions, okay? But anyway, let's start with introductions. So Margaret, tell us about yourself and Rubicon Organics. Thank you.
Great, thanks Pablo, and thanks for great panel you've got here today. I'm Margaret Brodie. I'm the CEO of Rubicon Organics. We're Canada's #1 premium licensed producer, focused on a house of premium cannabis brands, and we hold about 6% of the premium market in Canada. We're based in BC. I'm actually in Toronto today. Which BC is one of the best growing regions in Canada, and Orville will tell you the same thing in a second. We're listed on the TSXV, and we have 2 facilities. Our first is in Delta, just down the road from the PSF facility, Pacifica. It's called. It's got annual production capacity of around 11,000 kilos of premium flower, and everything that comes out of that facility is certified organic, which we're very, very proud of. We believe that the living soil and the unique IP that we have gives a competitive advantage to our super premium strategy. And we've just purchased a second facility that we expect to turn on very shortly here. This new facility is located in Hope, BC. It's about an hour and a half from our existing facility, and it has production capacity for around 4,500 kilos of premium flower. We're focused on our 3 flagship brands, Simply Bare Organic, 1964, and Wildflower. And just our recent results that I can't speak to Q3, but the second quarter, we were up 24% year on year, earning our highest ever net revenue of $15 million. So we're on a roll. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Margaret. Orville, go ahead.
Hi, Pablo. Thanks again for the invite. So Orville, President, Village Farms, Canadian Cannabis. Indeed, Margaret and I are very close to each other from a location perspective. We're a little bit bigger though. We do well over 100,000 kilos a year. We have several locations globally. We have a facility here in Delta in BC, approximately 2 million square feet under glass. Then we have our facility in Quebec, and then we're building the second facility in the Netherlands as we speak, probably one of the largest global cannabis companies in the world at the moment. Also a quite successful second quarter of the year. Shipping internationally, also very strong on a domestic market. High demand for our brands at the moment. Things are going very well, to be honest.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And before I go to Alex and Cyrus, I mean, we for the audience, we felt that it was good to have private companies also in the panel, right? Obviously, Rubicon and Village Farms are listed stocks, VFF in the NASDAQ. But we felt that having private companies also can provide an interesting perspective. So, Alex Smith, please go ahead.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Pablo, and welcome to the other guests. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm the CEO with Canada's Island Garden in Prince Edward Island, Canada. We're locally owned and operated, so all of our shareholders are actually residents and business owners here in Prince Edward Island, so it might be a little bit different than some of the others on the panel. We have 3.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go on. I'm sorry.
We have 3 separate brands. Primarily, our flower is done through Figure. We do have a milled brand, Piper's Punch, and then a vapes and extract-based brand called Riptides. And yeah, we've had an incredible year where we've grown. We're very fortunate to have a facility that's around 330,000 square feet. When we acquired the facility, we bought it actually from a public company and moved back to private, which is a little bit unique situation. And we were not at capacity or close to it at the time. Over the last few years, we've been expanding into it.
All right. Thank you. Cyrus, go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Cyrus Hambaz. I'm the CEO of Triple C, Canadian Clinical Cannabinoids. We're kind of a new kids on the block, sort of. Since 2021, we came on the scene in the legal cannabis side. And since then, we've been able to, even though we came into a market that was at that time, kind of, I guess, compressing prices, or prices was on the way down, to build the largest privately held company in Canada. So very proud of the team and what they've been able to accomplish. We have two brands. One of them is the Loud Plug, which is kind of our higher end on pricing, let's say, that we distribute our products coast to coast. And then we have the Republic, which is more of a discount brand as far as bringing value to the consumers from coast to coast.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Look, we're going to now try, it's a general question for all four of you. I'll start with Orville. The idea is to discuss, your position in Canada's flower segment and also your strategy. So we want to touch on a few topics. Strategy, one brand versus many, one strain versus many strains, how many SKUs, trends in terms of performance, growth in terms of, is reg flower a driver of growth for your business, or are you relying on other categories? If you can discuss your supply chain, and also if you made any changes in terms of pivots, like moving into more profitable segments or cutting SKUs or adding SKUs. I'll start with, I know there's a lot there, but Orville, I'll start with you, whatever you can share for us, please.
Well, those were a lot of questions in one, Pablo, so I'll try to remember some of them at least. So we have multiple brands, Pure Sunfarms, Soar, Fraser Valley, and Super Toast. And those segments are actually broken up the way the consumer likes to consume cannabis. So we have a convenience category with Super Toast. Then we have the value segment, but I don't like the definition of value segment because I think our quality actually supersedes the definition of the value segment. Fraser Valley, then we have our core with Pure Sunfarms, and then we have our premium with Soar. So we try to serve all consumers within the segmentation of the Canadian cannabis industry. Then also, if you look at the number of strains that we have, we're looking to launch several new strains every single quarter. The Canadian consumer loves innovation, loves new strains. So we're constantly actively feeding and hunting constantly to find new strains. We never buy cannabis. We always grow our own cannabis and sell it in the market. Demand is very high, as I said, domestically as internationally. So it's very difficult to keep up with demand for newness and new strains constantly, but we're constantly hunting for that. And obviously, we're not oblivious to what the consumer is demanding on pre-rolls and infused pre-rolls and vapes. So we also serve that segmentation in the market as well. We have milled offerings. So we have everything basically the consumer is looking for in the entire Canadian market.
Thank you. I'll have some follow-ups there, but Margaret, go ahead. You are on mute, Margaret, I think.
How many times have we all done that?
That's all of us.
In terms of brands, we've got our 3 flagship brands, and the top 2, Simply Bare Organic, is really targeting the super premium consumer. Similar to what Orville said, we are looking to have new news in that in the genetics in that brand for the connoisseur on a regular basis, and we're really excited about the new genetics we've been dropping recently. They're doing incredibly well, and that is, again, similarly, well, we like to say our genetics work is called Fight Club. We don't talk about Flight Club because we're doing so much work in the background, and we want to be first to market with some wonderful things, but very excited about the next 2 years run rate we have. And, cannabis for a lot of really heavy consumers is like fashion. They want the new news, but they do go back to the standard, some of their go-tos. Often like going to drink wine, somebody would go out and they usually have one thing that's always in their cellar, and they would turn it over on top with some new news as they go into store. That's what we're looking to do with the Simply Bare Organic brand. Our 1964 brand is really looking to be its premium brand, looking to recruit the legacy consumer into the legal market. And there we have a ton of demand, and we aren't even tapping all of that demand right now, which is, if you look to where our growth will be, it will be as we turn on our new facility, and I expect to see the first revenue from that facility in the first half of next year. In terms of new products and what's going on, we just launched into the all-in-one category. There'll be more growth there for us as well. We launched vape last year and edibles the year before that. We really found that the success of the reputation we've built of trust and quality with our premium flower allowed the consumer chose to trust our brands and try them and give us that first point of call. With edibles, we've got about just under 30% of the premium market in edibles. With vape, we've risen within a year to the number 2 resin vape in the market. And now with all-in-one, we've only launched 1 SKU, and there should be 4 in market by the end of the year. So lots to come from us.
That's great. Just one insight there, if we can share, Margaret, in terms of when people are thinking of 1964, are they thinking of the brand or are they thinking about specific strain or both? I mean, it seems to me that customers seem to be more sticky to a strain than to a brand, but correct me if I'm wrong. Any thoughts on
Well,
that?
I think our Comatose and our Blue Dream that both sit underneath that brand have just been absolute mainstays. And what you want to find is those hero strains that people come back to time and time again. And those two are that. We have some other wonderful strains. We've twice won Flower of the Year with 1964, and I think it is the strain is a huge part of it. But it's how it's grown. The consistency of showing up for consumers is how you build a trusted brand promise, and we're looking to do that. I should mention, I didn't answer one of your questions, which was around cultivation. We have a new facility coming on. We do have a couple of small growers that we work with, smaller growers that we work with to put product into the 1964 brand. But I can tell you, we went across Canada and saw dozens of facilities before we selected who's going into our products. And part of us buying additional facility was really identifying that consistency and trust in terms of what you deliver to your consumer is really important. So controlling your supply.
Understood. Thank you. Cyrus, go ahead on the same question, same topic.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that both guests said. We're pretty much on par with what they said about this. Our industry always wanting what's new, and it's like almost a fashion show per season. So we're constantly busy, and the team finding out what's the best next thing. The only thing I can add to this, one of your I think question was, what about the SKU size and where are you guys focusing on? One of the things is us at the Loud Plug having a smaller team, it kind of forces us to really look for efficiencies. So when it comes to SKUs, I believe that having 200, 300 SKUs is not the answer. So we have a very focused approach for your audience, people who are out there looking at, hey, what do we do? Do we go to every category? I think really in our industry, it's time to kind of take a pause and see what your approach is. You take a look at our, let's say, BC menu for the Loud Plug. We only have 10 SKUs, and I think maybe we're getting another one or two coming in, but at the same time, we're taking two away. But with only operating on 10 or 11 SKUs, we're one of the, I would say, top 10 in revenue, even though we only have 10 SKUs. So I think the SKU size and the purpose why they're in the market are super important. And beyond that, even the new submissions that we're doing a very purposeful and kind of approach towards new SKUs coming in and why they're coming in, and not going like the old times of 2018 or 2019, putting, let's say, a 3.5, a pre-roll, a shatter, without any kind of focused approach on what the marketing point of view and what you're trying to achieve in that space. So your SKU doesn't get lost in all the noise that is out there. And again, a great example is some of the companies that are here today. They're one of the most successful and best in class of how they approach what I'm talking about in as far as approaching a SKU with purpose.
Right. Before I move to Alex, to Cyrus, I mean, does that mean if your strategy has been to have a small number of SKUs and that's worked for you, does that mean that when you try to launch more SKUs, maybe you'll get pushback from the provincial boards and from the retailers?
Not at all. I think it's the other way around. I mean, we've been lucky enough to be successful where the more success you have, the more category managers allow you to come in. It just has efficiencies. If you have, let's say, 100 SKUs, by the time you get to the 40th and the 50th SKUs, they're not very efficient. And so whether it's, how much cultivation you're doing, how much you're turning over, and how much money is tied up in these SKUs, that beyond your core SKUs, you have to really be careful how much labor and funds are being allocated to things that they're not really moving the needle in a meaningful way. So it's really, again, it's a calculated move that we've done. And places like Ontario, where we're more heavy in SKUs, we're starting to really, again, if there's a new SKU going in, what is the purpose of that SKU, and could we take a SKU out that is not as efficient as, let's say, the top 10 SKUs that we have in market.
Right. Got it. Thank you. Alex, same question.
Yeah, I think from my end, I would probably say that we historically looked at launching like as much as we possibly could. That seemed to be the name of the game for a while. I think my interpretation is that the market has shifted a little bit from that. In our case, certainly, where we have a lot of demand and frankly more demand than we're able to keep up with our existing portfolio. So we would be less, we're still looking to launch probably a new strain every 6 months. But really what we're doing, one thing or what we hang our hat on is we produce every single cultivar that you buy from us. Everything that's bought from Bigger is grown in this very facility. So it's a numbers game for us where we have so much capacity. We're looking to add, and we have added about 20 to 25% capacity every year for the last 3 years. We'll continue to do that. And I think that's a secret mix of being able to scale a lot, but not too much that you can compromise quality. So that's been our recipe to growth. And with that, you only have so much square footage that you can allocate towards the strain. And we've been fortunate that through the quality improvements we've made, each cultivar is needing to take up more and more of our facility. So as we look to add, we're also looking to subtract in most cases where we're moving a cultivar out to make space for that new variety. And that's certainly a balancing and a juggling act as much as anything. But we're not rushing by any means anything into the market. And I think there's lots that you can do within a strain. I mean, you can launch as a 3.5 and a 7, and then you could scale it to a 14 and 28 and piggyback on that success. And we've had some wins with that approach. And then you can also move it back, as I know some folks on the call have done very well, into other categories, whether that's new forms of pre-roll, whether that's an infused pre-roll using the same terpene profile as the cultivar. So there's ways that you can expand that cultivar without launching a whole new genetic. So that allows us to take more time on that end.
No, that's great. I mean, we have a lot of follow-ups there. And again, to those of you raising your hand in the audience, remember, please put your questions in the chat room in Zoom. I'll read some of them or send them to me by email. Orville, I'm going to go back to you if we can unpack some of the things that you said. I mean, obviously here we have 4 different companies, all very unique. Sure, they all compete in the same market, but I would be careful with the comparisons because they are in different niches, right? I mean, obviously Village Farms, consistent number 1 in flower, top 1, top 2, larger in scale. But Orville, I mean, can you talk a little bit about? It seems that Village Farms went from being mostly a one brand strategy type company with Pure Sunfarms, and then you launched Super Toast and the original Fraser Valley Wheat Company and other brands. And you expanded the number of SKUs. Why is that true? First of all, is my read correct? Why was that done? Has that worked out? How has that worked out for you? What can you tell us in that regard?
That's a great question. So we have to go back a little bit in time, right? When we go to the beginning of legalization, and I think for the audience and for people to understand, it's very difficult to compare us. We're doing large-scale agriculture for the last 30 years. So agriculture is difficult and it's complicated by nature, but Village Farms has been doing it for a very, very long time. Now, in order to grow large flower in a consistent way, you still have to learn it. So even for us, we had to learn how to grow cannabis in a consistent way. So back in 2018, when we started cultivating cannabis, even with all the years of knowledge that we had, it was still a steep learning curve. So we focused on a one brand strategy in the beginning. Then you can see the consumer preferences changes over time. So we started introducing new brands in the segmentation in the market to feed those consumers. And also what we just heard is that we phase strains in and you phase strains out. So you get new strains that have a certain life expectancy, 6 to 9 months, and then at a certain time the demand drops off, it falls off, and you phase a strain out of your system. So in order to do that in a healthy way, we came up with a different strategy in a different brand at a different price category. They're no longer our core, our premium strains. They're going to the Fraser Valley, and we slowly phase that strain out of the system. So that were the first 2 brands that we launched. Then the convenience category came, and we call it grab and go. The consumer comes in, wants a pre-roll and leaves again. So there was a whole new consumer. If you go back in 2018, predominantly was all flower sales. So as the market is evolving, so is the consumer. So you have to serve that segmentation as well. And then obviously being this large and having constantly at least 30, 40 trials going on, like we can do as many trials as we want because square meters or square footage is not an issue for us. But for us to successfully commercialize a new strain, it takes 18 months, right? You want to make sure that you understand fully what it does in your entire system. So we grow smaller batches, and those smaller batches we offer in our premium segment in a SOAR category. So it's a very complicated answer, but it comes down to our 30 years heritage and slowly learning how to do this appropriately with a plant that is not that easy to grow.
Right. And just on those topics, in terms of the current expansion in the Delta 2 facility, I mean, you're converting the half of the tomato growth into cannabis. Is that mostly for the export markets? Can you give more color about that? And if you can remind us of the tonnage output you expect from that expansion.
Yeah, so it's not only for the international market. Our current demand is so high domestically and internationally that we have nothing left, right? We're basically sold out. So we're in a very fortunate position to be in. So the expansion was the only logical option, and we're going to be well over 100,000 kilos. We already are well over 100,000 kilos, but then we're going to be even much closer to 140, 150 in tonnage when the two facilities are fully converted.
Right. And look, I mean, just two more questions. Based on the data, it seems that your average pricing has been moving up ahead of the market. Is that because of some type of pivot in your portfolio? And then if you can also talk about whether you index or over-index or under-index in any provinces, whatever color you can share, Orville. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that although we think our price is actually it's a reflection of quality. That's how we see it. So our price might sometimes be different than what the competition is seeing, but we think it's a fair value for the quality that we produce. It's not necessarily that the pricing has changed, but the bucket or the mix has changed for the consumer and what we sell in the stores more than before. So for instance, we focus more on the Pure Sunfarms brand than we focused on our Fraser Valley brand. The quality of the Pure Sunfarms is higher, and I think we attract the consumer in a much better way. And we can serve the consumer there a lot better than we can do in the Fraser Valley segment. So it's changing over time. So it's more the product mix. So we're not moving away from the value segment whatsoever, but the product mix is changing.
Got it. Thank you. Margaret, a few questions for you. In terms of the premium flower segment, right? Is that a segment that's growing, that's gaining share? Is that segment in terms of brands more concentrated than the overall market? Would you say the consumer in premium is more brand loyal than in mainstream or value? What can you share in that regard?
Great question. Well, to tackle the first one, premium flower segment, if you look at the Hifyre data, it looks like it's going down. But the way Hifyre cuts the data is that it's 20% greater than the average selling price. So what we see is brands moving in and out depending on what's happening in total market. We measure ourselves on a bucket of brands that we believe we should be measuring our brands against, but we also look at total Hifyre, and we're beating on both in terms of our growth. So we're very happy with that. It's very important for us. And I'm certainly measured from my board on making sure that we're beating market. I think if it looks like premium segment is declining, it's probably average prices coming up in total market. And we have actively seen that in the last year. But look, what is the premium experience? It's about elevating an experience for your consumer. A great genetic, a unique new genetic, full-bodied flavor, and a white ash clean burn. That's what a premium consumer is looking for. And you do not get a second chance with them. You have to make sure that you're always putting out great fire, as we would say. We have a basket of brands that we believe can be that really speaks to both the super premium and the premium consumer. In terms of their concentration, and you asked about the premium segment being concentrated or fragmented, we think that there's a lot more concentration beginning now at the premium segment. We're starting to see that more consistently. The same brands are on shelf in many stores. We've also seen a lot of players drop out of premium and move down the value chain. And then we've seen a lot of Canadian producers and not the ones on this call, pull their product out of market, especially smaller ones, to sell it into the international markets. And that's really created an opportunity for us in the Canadian space. We really are focused on the Canadian customer at this stage because we believe that the shelf has been built in the last 12 months, really. It's harder and harder to get SKUs listed in Canada. And then your last question you asked me, is the premium consumer more brand loyal? I think the bud tender certainly is, and the bud tender is a huge part of that influence. I don't think there's clear data on that yet, but I would say that the connoisseurs know what they're looking for and are coming back time and time again. They still do move for new genetics and new news, and our competition definitely keeps us on our toes on that. But we need strong competition in the Canadian space because that's what's going to build a really robust industry for the long term. So I think the competition that we've had in the last 3 years is actually making everyone better.
Right. And you brought up the subject of bud tenders. What can you share in terms of route to market, sales force out there? Sometimes we wonder, not yourselves, but some companies are smaller, some companies are bigger. Do you have the resources to compete in that sense and to be in front of those bud tenders? Whatever you can share in that regard.
Yeah. From day one, we've had our own sales team. And I'm really proud to work with all of them. They're a fantastic force that I'm always excited to see out. We think that you do not want to be walking into a store with 10 different brands that you're trying to sell. You should be focused. You should be clear on the value proposition. And as Orville said very well, speaking to that consumer and understanding that consumer's need, I think that's incredibly important. We also need to help our bud tenders and retail customers to teach them, not teach them, but to help them to sell premium. They get more margin off a premium product, and it builds a bigger basket size. So selling one of our products delivers, a higher margin into their business. So we're here to work with them to support growing their businesses as well. And I think that's focusing on the retailer and the bud tender is a really key part of succeeding in the premium industry.
Right. And Margaret, I know you already mentioned the acquisition of the Hope indoor facility, but maybe share more color in terms of strategic significance for the company. Why is this such a big deal?
Well, it's a big deal because we got it for a great price, so I'm very happy with that. It's very close operationally to our existing facility, and when you're running a hybrid greenhouse, look, we've been very successful with running it and running an organic system, which is difficult to do without monocrops. Every crop that we grow has different genetics in it, which keeps things interesting as well. But what we're excited about with indoor is it's always been the goal to be able to take genetics that are okay in the hybrid environment, but love an indoor environment. And we're going to be able to take some genetics and I think express them in a totally different way in a new environment. The original genetics that have been used in Canada were all grown, other than those that were purely outdoor, have actually been grown in indoor environments. And a lot of the genetics have been bred in there. So we've got some hypothesis on what's going to happen, but we're very bullish on getting that into shape and beating some of the expectations there. We've also got a lot of unmet demand, both in Canada and internationally, and I think there's a lot more to come from us. So watch this space, I would say.
That's great. Thank you. Cyrus, just moving on to you. I have a few questions, but let's start first with the export side of things. How are you thinking about the export markets yourselves?
On the export market, I'm very cautious just because, as I mentioned, we were created in January 15th of 2021. And as Margaret was mentioning, as a lot of companies, for a better lack of word, they couldn't stand the heat in the kitchen in Canada. They decided to go overseas for higher prices. But we've been in a very unique spot where we've been trying to keep up with the demand and the growth within Canada. But I would say in the next year, we're probably going to dabble a little bit overseas as I've done some traveling, just seeing what the prices are. But so far for the CCC team and the Law Plug, it's been all hands on deck in making sure that our domestic business, which is pretty much, our whole business is as strong as ever, and we can keep up with the growth and make sure that we're consistent before we go out and try to conquer the world and lose what a precious brand that we have built here at home.
Right. Look, I mean, just a couple of questions in terms of what you can share. I mean, we realize you're a private company. According to Hi-Fire, you're, number 7 with 3% market share, very close to Sundial at number 6. How high can you go in flower? I mean, are you doing a lot outside of flower? Loud Plug seems to be a much bigger brand in your portfolio than the Republic brand, but any color you can share there in terms of the outlook for the other brand?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just one more I want to add, and I know that's a lot there, Cyrus, but is it fair to say the Loud Plug as a brand is a value brand in the premium segment, given its focus on the 28G?
Yeah, I think you could say so. On the premium section, maybe we're a little bit on the lower end, but in the overall market, our pricing is one of the highest when you take a look at the 28 gram or 14 gram. I think the consumer has been changing a little bit on us. So obviously, we sell a lot of ounces across the country. One of the things we started dabbling in is our drippies line, the Loud Plug drippies, these are the infused pre-rolls. But beyond that, I think every company is trying to get into that category because it's hot. We've been doing really well on it. But in 2026, I truly believe myself that we're going to come back to flower. Now, maybe the way we consume that flower might change a little bit by a few percentage points. I wouldn't say, it's going to be something really drastic if we look at it 3 years from now. But we do know that pre-rolls, especially the big format pre-rolls, are taking more of a share in the future. So the Loud Plug purposely is going to take more and more share of that premium pre-roll market. And we do think that premium flower user is definitely out there that wants convenience and wants, to smoke their joint right away without rolling it. So we're looking to take more and more market share in other categories other than just pure flower, and we're looking forward to that. I mean, we've seen a lot of success in vapes for ourselves. We've seen a success in the infused category. But truly, since the Benny Blunto days and the blunt that put us on the map, we haven't really, seen really good success on the pre-roll side because our concentration being so much on flower, new genetics, and then rinse and repeat. And I think definitely we're leaving a lot of money on the table, which we're planning to take advantage of that in 2026.
And Cyrus, to be clear, do you grow your own flower or you outsource a lot?
We outsource, at this facility that I'm sitting in, I used to grow myself. We were here for almost 11 years. But because of the scale and, the need of the flower and how fast we could grow, currently we use 3 different facilities in Ontario and one in New Brunswick that grow for us.
Got it. Thank you. Alex, a couple of questions for you here. And correct me if I'm wrong, right? From the data, it seems that Canada Silent Garden is mostly a one-brand company, right? Is it risky to rely on just one brand in this market? Cost benefits outweigh the risks. 3 flower strains, according to Hi-Fire, account for about 96% of your flower sales. So again, very focused portfolio. Again, I'm just trying to understand it's very different from other companies, but it seems to be working for you. Any color you can share there? Alex, I think you're on mute. There we go.
Thanks, Pablo.
Yeah.
I think some of that just traces back to what I spoke on earlier, is that we grow everything that we produce, and because of that, we control our own supply, and we take a lot of caution in that. So as we see demand for our products increasing, we grow more of those cultivars. So those, we've been very fortunate that we've organically grown with an existing portfolio, and in lieu of trying to find new cultivars, we continue to scale the ones that we have. We're always trialing between 15 and 20 different varieties, and we have introduced I think 3 different new cultivars over the course of the last year. But again, as those cultivars continue to grow and take market share, we're going to keep growing them and grow them at scale. And anyone who grows anything knows the more that you grow something, the better you get at it. So the fact that we can continue to grow these same cultivars, the jungle fumes that folks are buying today is better than the jungle fumes that we grew a year ago, and the jungle fumes that buy a year from now will be better than that. And that's we'll take that philosophy, that'll never stop, and that's part of who we are.
Yeah. And just, for you, Alex, in terms of, potency seems to be the big deal, right? But is that changing? Is it more nuanced now from the consumer perspective? What's your view on that?
I think everybody on the call wishes it would, but doesn't have the crystal ball to tell you when, Pablo. I think whenever you only have so much limited information before you actually get a product into your hands, that's always going to be a discerning factor for consumers. And we tried to go against the grain on that a few times and got killed. Some of the best genetics we've ever grown are sitting at 20%, and they're sitting in our tissue culture lab waiting for a day that we can grow them again. But until we're a large, not as large as some in the industry, but we, compared to most, are a large scale cultivator, and that's who we are first and foremost. And we need to produce products that can sell in volume. We do participate in those larger pack sizes as well. So we can't really, afford to take a massive risk on a 20% cultivar, even though we know it's incredible. We are in the volume game, and we recognize that. So we're fortunate we're in Atlantic Canada. We do some limited drops of lower potency, but in terms of getting, a national SKU with national appeal to move large volumes, I think that THC game is still pretty hot right now.
Right. And just a quick question for you, Cyrus and Alex, and not to put you on the spot, but in terms of funding, are you raising funds at the moment? People listening to this call could be potential investors. Is that something you're looking at? Just short answers if you can. Alex first.
Sure. I'd say not currently. We've been fortunate to have a really good last few years under our belt, and we've grown pretty organically and bootstrapped a lot of our growth. So we, as I mentioned at the outset of the call, all of our shareholders are local. They actually not only Canadian, but all live and work in Prince Edward Island. So pretty unique that way, and have been with us since day one. So that's how we plan to keep rolling.
Right. And sorry, and Cyrus, any comment on that?
Same. We're a very small private company. There's only two shareholders, myself and my partner, that we both work in the business. And we've been super lucky to be able to have a successful business that made profit from day one. And I feel like the more money you bring is just going to get diluted. We want to make sure we're focused and able to do what we need to do. So having control and being able to do what we do and what we're good at is important. So no, at the moment, we're not in a raising funds.
Okay, thank you.
Scenario.
Again, to those of you that want to ask questions, please email them to me or put them on the chat room. I'm going to jump just different topics. I'll start with you, Orville. Anything you can share, Orville, in terms of the potential the regulatory changes that are taking place in Quebec, right? In terms of new products, new formats. And again, these are general questions for everyone. Everyone can chip in, but just brief answers. Anything you can share in terms of how that's playing out or how it will play out. Any thoughts on that, Orville? Brief.
Absolutely. Very important market for us with our facility there. Economically very important province. So very excited for the new vapes. They're going to be launched in November of this year. We got a big SKU in, so I'm actually stoked to be able to do something new there. And it's going to be very interesting to see, right? We talk about THC constantly. There's going to be a cap on the THC level there at 30%. So I'm actually very excited to see what the consumer is going to do. Mm-hmm. There's a regulatory difference as well with the botanical terps that you can add. So I'm stoked to see what the Quebec consumer does, and I'm actually hoping that some of that will actually transition into the rest of Canada. Then also some simplifications to the system, right? Getting rid of the nursery program and going on full distribution right away. Also something that excites me very much. It's a massive market for us. We're very happy and very privileged to be there to begin with a very strong team on the ground. We have a great relationship with the SQDC. So these changes that are actually happening right now, they personally excite me. Yeah. For the changes and the product offering that we can actually offer to the consumer. And you can see that the consumer is slowly changing in that province as well, to become more like the Canadian consumer altogether.
Right, but do you think, when we talk about new formats, the idea is that they bring in new consumers also, but there is some cannibalization of flower. Is that true, and how do you prepare with the other formats there, with the new formats?
So obviously you have to compete in the other formats as well, where we go into the convenience category. I don't necessarily think that a vape consumer will cannibalize flower. It will cannibalize the other categories just as much. So it's growth in a different segment. So I see it as an opportunity instead of a risk.
Right. Okay. No, thank you. Anyone else want to chip in on Quebec? Margaret or
I would just say that the Quebec market is a fantastic place to be, and I think people that have a flag in Quebec, that's an advantage in terms of that province. The Quebec consumer hasn't had vape. They also don't have edibles and topicals, and there's only, is it 95 stores, under 100 stores or around there for the entire province, when at a similar size, Ontario has over 1,000. We'd love to see more store count because, in our view, without having access to legal cannabis, people are in the legacy market, in the black market. So, really encourage that government is thinking more widely about that. But there's also, lots of challenges in terms of stigma that we as an industry collectively need to talk about in terms of access for youth, so that it's blocked out, that we're building this industry in a way that our Canadian population will support. And I think that's very important.
right. Thank you. Look, I mean, Cyrus and Alex, I want to ask, this is a general question, but whatever you can share here, in terms of distribution, right? Anything you can share regarding your go-to-market strategy, dealing with the boards and the retailers, from my perspective, maybe a very simplistic analysis, but it seems tougher for a smaller company having to deal with those large retail chains out there, maybe with the boards, but maybe I'm wrong. Any recent changes that you've seen in the way the boards behave with the companies? Any thought, do you prefer, dealing with independent retailers versus chains? Anything you can share there? I'll start with you, Alex.
Yeah, sure. I think it's all built on trust, Pablo, and I think we've been very fortunate that we deliver on our commitments to the absolute best of our ability. We maintain a fantastic. We look at the OCS and our supplier rating there. It's a metric that we track, on TVs around the facility, and one that we keep a close eye on because it means the world to us. So if we look at that, we take that same philosophy to independent retailers. So if we say we're going to do something, or we say we're going to have a product there, we do our best to get it to have it there, and that ties back to comments earlier about why we don't launch as many varieties, as many products as we may otherwise like to. So I think when it comes to that, you develop those relationships, but you can develop them on the surface pretty quickly to make them long-standing and true partnerships, if you will. It's there's no substitute for time and honesty and doing good business. And I think that's been our secret sauce. We might not have the wallets that some of our larger competitors would have to compete with some of those retailers, whether they're large or small. But I think we look to make up with that by having strong relationships.
That's good. Thank you. Cyrus, same question?
Yeah, same thing, really. Just building that relationship over time. Obviously, a lot of effort goes into that, and making sure that we can tell them our side of the story. But from coast to coast, when you take a look at, for a long time, Quebec was, really a tough nut to crack for us till last year when we got our 28-gram exotic gas that came in. And we've seen the Quebec market, especially with the population and the engine under that province, it almost does the same numbers for us as Ontario. So getting more SKUs in that province, it's been challenging, but as of late, it looks like Quebec is opening up more and more. We're looking to have a better relationship with SQDC. So hopefully, as I said, it was one of the provinces that we had a little bit more challenging times, as it needs more, I guess, regulatory readiness, even to be registered to do business in Quebec. But nonetheless, really, it wasn't, I wouldn't say any province was very hard. As the other guest was mentioning, is really building that relationship, spending and listening to see what is the need and where you can find that niche. And then being patient and just keep on going to the well. And even if it's a no, it's not a no forever. And over time, over the past now 5 years, we built a nice portfolio. It didn't come overnight. So for those people that are getting licensed, just be patient, I guess, and you will eventually, if your product is good and your pricing works well, you will crack that nut.
Right. No, thank you. Look, I mean, maybe one for Orville and Margaret. In terms of maybe more for when I think of capacity and facilities out there, right, that may be in the market. I mean, obviously, Margaret recently was able to buy a facility at a very good price, as she said, right? The point, I guess, the big picture point is that Canada continues to dominate overseas, right? If I count a lot of the product goes to Portugal. I mean, if I look at Germany and I factor Canadian imports plus what comes from Portugal, of which a good chunk is Canadian product, or I look at Australia, over 80% Canadian, seems to be that Canadian, product is in high demand out there. But at the same time, I wonder how many facilities are up for sale. I mean, so when you think of facilities that are available for sale out there, how do you think about that, Margaret, in terms of is that an opportunity? I guess a build from scratch, or in your case, Orville easier because you converted the tomato facility, I guess, tomato grow. But in your case, Margaret, you bought a new facility. But just in general, how do you see that landscape out there, Margaret? What would you say in that regard?
Well, great question. Look, the Canadian quality is, and those companies that are exporting a lot are certainly setting the bar and opening up the doors for others like us that have been focused on the Canadian market. And I think creating an opportunity for us to come in due course. We have 20 acres of land where we are. We could expand our existing facility in Delta, but we chose to purchase because specifically we wanted to add indoor capability from a premium perspective. Strategically, I think that we can get some of those plants growing in a different environment. I think they'll produce some really great results. But look, I think every single Canadian facility just went up in value in the last 12 months. And I think they're going to continue because we haven't seen incremental capital into like the capital runs that we saw in 2018 to 2021. And as a result, I think those that are sitting on and producing great cannabis out of Canada today are in a long-term fantastic and even even very short-term to mid-term, but I think Canada's going to be the exporter of quality product for a long time. We are going to see competition, mainly from outdoor grows, but there will be other facilities and people will catch up. And I think Orville will tell me something about his Dutch facility next that I'll be curious to hear.
Okay, go ahead, Orville. Yeah.
So if the question is buying a different facility to start cultivating cannabis, it's not that simple, right? We've been in this location our head grower has been here for more than 15, coming up to 17 years. So understanding the climate in order to grow here appropriately at scale is very complicated. So even if you go to a different country and you go to a semi-closed greenhouse, that's how I call them, right? You can't compare them to greenhouses anymore. You really need to understand the climate data before you do anything. Some of these greenhouses that are built are probably not in the right location. That's why they can't make it work. The Dutch facility is a high-tech indoor facility, so that's a very, very different style of growing. But even there, we learn how to grow again because it's a different style of growing, like I just said, with different systems. So it's not as simple to buy a facility and to convert a facility. Plus, we have a lot of capacity here, and we still have additional capacity with our D1 facility. And if we could turn that around into cannabis, then we are a massive, massive player. So we still have capacity to convert tomatoes to cannabis with the expertise of people that have been here for 20, 25 years in that facility specifically.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Look, I'm going to read a question here from the audience, maybe for Alex or Cyrus. The person asking, saying, brands keep pushing for higher and higher THC in flower products, but research indicates that lower THC levels have a significantly lower risk profile. This is what the person asking the question is saying. What options are you providing for people looking for lower THC, 7 to 12% products, and why do you think we see so few options in that category? Just brief answer, Cyrus and Alex, if you want to answer.
Yeah, of course. I think one of the things that we're pushing right now with retailers and some provincial distributor is let's look at the terpenes, and we're not going to get into like maybe a geeky conversation about limonene, and obviously the budtenders don't have the time to sit there and just explain everything to a consumer. But we talk about the bags having gas. You open it up, does that cushy nose transfer to the consumer's palates? We're constantly talking about that, but I think we also have businesses to run, and listening to the consumers out there, what they're picking up, and sometimes not going against the grain. For example, there is provinces that dictate what percentage they're willing to take in. And a lot of time, I feel like me and my colleagues sometimes are to blame on the wrong end of the spectrum. Because, for example, with a province I'm not going to name, but they dictate to us, hey, you got to give me a product 29% and higher. Well, what, I guess, options are you leaving the licensed producer other than producing what the consumers wants or what the province wants? So I would say we do have a line within the CCC house of brands or that, we have a brand called You Feel You, which has lower THC products and has some medical cannabis products like feel sticks and things like that. But the sales on the You Feel You products are doing pretty good for being in an NHP category. But to keep the lights on, as they say, for the whole company to succeed, obviously the Loud Plug brings in the majority of the revenue. But the CCC is actively always looking to see how we can bring other products, including the lower THC. But as I said, it's a very small part of our business, and is not intentional. It's just that we have to make sure that we're listening to the consumer and what they're buying.
Right.
That's
Anyone
all.
else want to chip in on that? No. Okay.
No, I think that's bang on. But what Cyrus said, I mean, that's our experience as well.
Yeah, I would echo the same. Look, we have really wanted to bring out lower THC products. We had one strain, a Harlequin in Simply Bare. It does do well for a while, but again, everything gets tired to a certain extent as we go back to the fashion analogy. And I would say where we see some really interesting opportunities. We have a brand called Wildflower. It's got the #1 topical in the country, and it's an absolutely fantastic product. Some of the challenge with a wellness-focused cannabis brand is that consumer doesn't love walking into a cannabis store. They're usually at Whole Foods. So while they love the product and they're very loyal to it, we see steady and consistent growth there. We need some stigma to reduce to get people in. And I think in the same way that if we look 10 years in the future, we won't have 40% or up to 40% of Canadians buying in both legal and legacy markets. We're going to naturally have more and more people coming into the legal stores.
Right. Thank you. Look, I have someone asking a question here referring to another LP that I will not mention, but says LPX, let's call it, is one of the first cannabis companies to implement middleware technology to connect all of their tech stacks, ERP, CRM, marketing, etc., to support the implementation of AI agents moving forward. What are your AI plans? I mean, short answers. I don't know. I don't know if it's. I guess it is topical, but anyone want to chip in there, or do you want to keep it?
I'd say we're all probably exploring it and looking at lots of different ways from a small scale up. We've got an AI strategy that we're going to be driving forward with, but it's not our focus is on the quality of the plants and our consumers. We do think that there's probably some savings there, but in terms of efficiency, but time will tell.
Sure. Look, just a general question in terms of branding. We understand all the push effort in terms of dealing with the bad tenders, retailers, and the boards. Obviously, you cannot advertise. But, when I use the word advertise, I mean, quote unquote, but how do you create brand awareness from a pool perspective? And I know that's a bit, again, simplistic, but recently I think I saw Curaleaf has a very nice advertisement for a new pre-roll product, and they put it in social media. And it looks like an advertisement to me. It's not on TV, but it's there, right? So how do you create a brand awareness in a Canadian context other than the usual push strategies? Anyone?
I can speak. One of the biggest, whenever we look at our growth trajectory, one of the biggest changes that we made was we moved from having a sales agency representing our products to owning our own sales team, or hiring our own sales team that owns our brands. And I couldn't say enough good things about the fantastic group of people that are out there selling our products and telling our story, and really telling, we have a unique story that we're, privately owned from a small island, and getting that story out there. It's difficult to put it on social media. So we're more guerrilla, boots on the ground out there, spreading our message and hoping that message not only is coming from our sales team, but, in conversations within stores, word of mouth can pass that message along even further than our great team has the capacity to. So we've had a lot of success with that, and it certainly pairs or coincides with whenever we saw a lot of growth. So, more of the same that way from my perspective, Pablo, in a limited environment otherwise.
Right. Thank you. Orville, look, I'm going to read a question here from the audience. It's a general question, but I'll address it to you, given your presence in the export markets. For Canadian LPs going beyond borders, what do you see as a key competitive advantage for Canadian product, the pressing challenges, and most exciting opportunities in the global market expansion? I know there's a lot there, but your perspective, Orville.
Yeah, I think Margaret said it. I think quality is really what makes a difference. Obviously, quality's scale of economy, right, we're very large, and then pricing becomes a component to it as well. But at this moment, it's our quality that's really driving the sales internationally. I think the opportunity is immense. If Germany goes fully rec, then there will be no supply in the country itself, right? They won't have growing capacity to meet demand anytime soon. Plus, again, Germany probably not the right place to build a greenhouse. Very limited greenhouses there to begin with. So I think the opportunity is massive. And if Germany falls, so to say, yeah, it's the largest, most dominant factor in market in Europe. So then other countries will follow suit. The Netherlands has already have the transition, Switzerland as well. So the momentum is enormous for the Canadian companies, especially the companies of size. The momentum is enormous. Difficulty will always be political changes within the country themselves. We don't control those, so I can't make any predictions. But if something changes in the country, it might stop everything altogether at once. You're always going to be bound by that.
Right. Orville, I mean, just one question for you in terms of obviously, your brands have done very well in the market, but does Village Farms need an indoor facility for the Canadian market at some point?
We have an indoor facility for the Canadian market in Quebec.
Right.
It is an indoor facility.
Okay. And you're sending product from there to the other provinces too?
Yeah. Well, we've tried to focus on that province themselves, right? So grown in Quebec for Quebec, that's always a good policy to have. But the premium flower, we have the same strains that we try indoor versus semi-closed greenhouse.
Right.
And sometimes we see a huge difference, right? Strains react differently in a different environment. So then we put them in a premium segment throughout the country as well. If something is stunning, then we bring it back to BC and sell it in BC as well.
Right.
Maybe
Okay.
I can add something there. I think sometimes we go on buzzwords a lot. Saying greenhouse or indoor. For example, again, Pure Sunfarm. The technology that goes into these greenhouses, from the air to anything that you could control, that mind can imagine, is just like an indoor facility. And we the same at the Loud Plug. We have a hybrid greenhouse facility and an indoor facility. You cannot say one cannabis is better than the other. Sure, they might have a little bit different profile, but from THC to the look of the bud, to the terpenes and how that nose transfers to the consumer, you couldn't tell. And that's because of the technology that goes into them.
I love that you said that, because we had when I was in Berlin earlier this year at the ICBC conference, and it was interesting, people saying, well, how are you guys growing in greenhouse? And I said, wait a minute, we're not growing outdoor. Because they said, because outdoor is down here in our mind. And we said, we're growing in living soil with supplemental lighting, with extreme HVAC, with tender loving care of our team. And the power of the sun actually enriches a lot of the terpenes and the flower and gives us an incremental light spectrum. So, some of these buzzwords, as you say, whether you say outdoor, hybrid, greenhouse, or indoor, it's actually about the methodology, and no one facility is the same. And you'll see that time and time again. Every facility has their own nuance. And I think, Orville spoke to it very well on climate, every humidity, the plants react differently, and you need to find and do the work to test and learn what are the strains that are going to be successful in there and what's going to have the best expression. It's been really fun this summer. We've had some really high terpene hits, the highest we've ever had, and it's very exciting to think about getting these into consumers' hands. So I'm just going to circle back to an earlier question to say we're here to elevate experiences, and it's not all about THC. I think there's going to be some. I know VFF is doing a lot of work around potency and communication on that in the market. I think all of us want a great and robust Canadian cannabis sector with high quality products going around the world, and that is speaking beyond THC.
Right. My 2 cents here would be that, the expertise that's been built in Canada over the last, call it 10 years, right, or since 2018 with regulation, it has built a huge moat, right, a very strong competitive advantage. And again, I go back to the data. Canada continues to dominate the overseas markets. And, 5 years ago, people were saying Colombia, Lesotho, South Africa, Thailand are going to dominate. Yes, they are growing, but they're still, at least in terms of numbers, still very small, right? So just a thought. Anyway, I know we're out of time here. I'll ask you, if you want to make any closing remarks, but thank you very much to our panelists. For those of you that have listened in Zoom, you have access to the video. It's going to be on YouTube. For those of you that were in Twitter, restreamed, the full video will also be available in Twitter again. But thanks everyone for joining. Alex, I'll start with you. Any closing remarks you want to make here?
No, thanks a lot for your time. To any of our customers or our partners that are listening, thanks so much for the support. It means the world, and we'll continue to work our asses off to get better every day as we have been. So thanks for the time.
That's great. Cyrus.
Thank you for this opportunity, and for all your audience the same, and hope some of you guys pick up the loud plug and see what we've been up to.
All right. Well, that's great. Orville, please. Thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you for the invite. Closing comment, and I'll try to answer very quickly 3 questions in one. So we've done a large study, to Margaret's comment, on THC variability in strains. The THC varies in the plant significantly, so we believe that we should go to a range instead of an exact number. This would also help with addressing the question of getting products to the market that are in the 12% category. Consumers are not buying us because they're looking at the exact number. This is also directly connected to your branding question. The only way to brand at the moment with the consumer is through quality and product innovation throughout. So different formats, different packaging. I think the window has made a huge change for us, so we can actually show what we do best. So again, I know it's the closing comment, but those are very, very critical. Slow change, but we need to keep on pushing and keep on pushing boundaries all together as all the LPs to better serve the consumer.
Right. No, thank you. And I know that, when people started talking about Village Farms, as a stock 5-7 years ago, when after the spin-off, after it became a full-blown company, some people were not paying enough attention to those 35 years of heritage you have on farming, right? And you've proven that counts, of course, and has made a big difference, Orville.
There's no shortcut to farming, let me tell you. I can speak from experience now, so there's no shortcut.
Yeah. Thank you. Margaret?
Look, Canada may be the home of quality today, but we have competition out there, and I think none of us can rest on our laurels. If there's one thing that the Canadian industry has done very well, it's have a ton of competition and teach us to compete. We're looking to build brands at Rubicon Organics that last this test of time, that are here for decades, and I think that comes through consistent high quality that we deliver time and time again to our consumers. And we do internal scoring on everything. The top score anything's ever reached is an 82% on our scale, and that is evidence that we believe there's a long way to go in terms of what Canadian cannabis and what we can deliver. So very excited for the future, and I think definitely watch this space.
Right. Thank you very much again to all our speakers, Margaret Brodie, Orville Bovenschen, Alex Smith, Cyrus Hambaz, and thanks everyone for joining. Everyone have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much. Bye.
Bye, everyone.